I want to begin by recognizing the 75th anniversary today of the liberation of the Auschwitz concentration and extermination camp. This was one of the darkest periods in human history. 1.1 million men, women, and children were killed, most of those men, women, and children of Jewish descent. We commemorate the unbreakable spirit of those who survived the Holocaust and together say never again. We are here this afternoon to unveil a new campaign that pays tribute to the great diversity of New York and speaks to how we can all come together to create a more inclusive community in the MTA transportation system. The reality is we have witnessed an alarming increase in hate crimes reported on our subways and buses, an increase of 42% in 2019 over 2018. On the Long Island Railroad, we have seen a slight uptick in these incidents, and on Metro North, we're proud that there's been a slight decline. But let me be clear, even one of these incidents is too many. Over the weekend, there was an abhorrent transphobic attack on the C train in Harlem. The NYPD is investigating the incident, but I want to make clear how sickening the attack was and how outraged I and everybody at the MTA is that any person would be the target of such an abhorrent act while riding our system. The bottom line is that hate has no place in our transit system or on our railroads. The MTA is going to do everything in its power to stop these disturbing incidents. Every New Yorker deserves to feel safe and secure while riding with us and traveling through the system free of harassment and discrimination based on race, color, religion, ethnicity, gender, age, disability, national origin, or sexual orientation. Starting today, the new campaign we're about to unveil will appear on thousands of screens across our entire system. More than 4,000 screens across the subway and bus systems, over 300 screens on the Long Island Railroad, and approximately 250 screens on Metro North will be displaying this new campaign. New Yorkers ride together. We're here to promote respect, solidarity, kindness, and tolerance for others. That's what we stand for. Let's all work together to treat each other like neighbors. Most important, if you have been the victim or a witness to any crime, including a suspected hate crime or bias incident, you should immediately report it to law enforcement, including the New York Police Department and the MTA Police Department. As our campaign says, remember to call the New York State hotline at 1-888-392-3644. That's 1-888-392-3644 to report hate crimes, and always call 911 in emergencies. You can also text the word hate to 8136, that's 8136, which is the New York State Hate Crimes Task Force. You can also send pictures to that text line as well. For more information on our campaign, you can also visit our new website at new.mta.info/respect. I want to thank the women of the MTA Police Department for all they do in keeping our customers safe, and the same thing with respect to the NYPD on subways and buses. With that, I'll turn it over to Metro North President Kathy Rinaldi.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Catherine Rinaldi. I'm the president of Metro North Railroad, and I'm proud to be kicking off this new campaign here at Grand Central Terminal, which is the hub of Metro North. As Chairman Foy said, hate has no place on our railroads. The Metro North team has been working to combat these incidents, and I am proud that we have made progress, but there's still a lot of work to do. Our goal is to have zero hate crimes on our railroad. It's critical to create awareness on this issue and to educate our customers on how they can proactively respond when they see a suspected hate crime occur. If you are witness to a suspected bias incident or a crime in progress, please contact law enforcement immediately. If our customers should see graffiti or any other hateful behavior, please let us know. And in the event of an emergency, call 911. Do not wait. This campaign is about creating a more inclusive community that is reflective of the kindness and respect that New Yorkers display for one another every day, and also standing in solidarity against hate and intolerance. We are stronger together, and it's our diversity that makes New York State great. I am proud that this campaign is now live on 252 screens across the Metro North network. The safety and security of our customers is our #1 priority, and we are going to continue to combat hate crimes at every turn. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Rod Brooks, who is the Senior Vice President of Operations at Long Island Railroad.
Good afternoon. I'm Rod Brooks, Senior Vice President of Operations for the Long Island Railroad. From frontline employees to senior management, we work hard every day to ensure our customers have a safe and reliable ride. And working alongside the MTA Police Department, we want to make sure our customers have a ride that is free from hate. Long Island Railroad customers will see this campaign at more than 300 stations that are located at our major hubs. That's Jamaica, Penn Station, and Atlantic Terminal, as well as other stations throughout our system. Excuse me. Like our sister agencies, the Long Island Railroad, and I want to say this clearly, I think this is important, has zero tolerance for bias-motivated threats or harassment on board our trains or in our stations. We have given and will continue to give our full support and cooperation toward all efforts by the MTA Police to investigate bias-related crimes. Our team at the Long Island Railroad is committed to continuing the fight against bias crimes and hate crimes. And I encourage this message to be shared far and wide so that anyone using our system knows that we take this issue seriously and will not rest until these vile acts are completely eradicated. Thank you. It's my pleasure now to introduce Sarah Meyer from New York City Transit.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Meyer. I'm the Chief Customer Officer for New York City Transit. I'm here to speak this afternoon a bit about the campaign itself. Our station signage and historic mosaics are iconic and permanent. These signs tell us where we are and where we want to go. We use these themes for the campaign. New York's commitment to the values you see next to me is permanent and immutable. As a Jewish woman, this campaign is personal. I hope it inspires us all to look out for one another. In the rush of our days, sometimes that gets lost. But acts of kindness, showing our fellow commuters respect and standing in solidarity against hate and intolerance is who we are. When we stand together, united, there is nothing we can't do. New York City Transit has zero tolerance for bias-motivated threats or harassment, and the increase in incidents is appalling. Let's show our fellow New Yorkers how much we care and work together to combat these incidents. This new campaign, which was developed by our in-house digital signage team, thanks to Joe and Jay who are behind us, will display over 4,000 screens across our subway and bus systems. We've also launched a new web page. You can go to new.mta.info/respect to learn more about the campaign. It's now my pleasure to introduce Kiara St. James, co-founder and executive director of the New York Transgender Advocacy Group. Thank
you. Hajambo family, and that's Kiswahili, means hello. So I'm a Southern Black trans woman, exile, who's been a New York City resident for the past 20 years, right? So one of the things I want you all to do, this is very participatory, is to uplift my community through a call and response. So when I yell these 3 statements, I want you to repeat them back, all right? Nod your heads. Awesome, awesome. Trans lives matter. Let's do that one more time, y'all. Trans lives matter. TGNC New Yorkers' lives matter. Respect and protect TGNC New Yorkers. Ashe, thank you for that. Hi, everyone. So I am Kiara St. James, as I said. I am the founder and executive director of New York Transgender Advocacy Group. We are a trans-led, center-focused organization, nonprofit. Look us up. I am proud to be here today to stand with the MTA to announce this campaign. This couldn't be timelier or more important. The subways, buses, and our commuter railroads must be a place where everyone feels safe and free from harm. As you know, there was a transphobic attack over the weekend on the subway. I stand with all New Yorkers when I say there is no place for hate in our transit system. There is zero tolerance for these types of horrible attacks on the LGBTQ community. Excuse me. And I applaud the MTA for taking this action. We all need to stand on the side of love, inclusion, and kindness. We need to celebrate diversity and all of our differences, not demonize them or criminalize them, may I add. The fact that everyone is different, everyone has a unique voice and perspective is what makes New York great, or it should. I want to encourage my fellow New Yorkers to take action to help combat hate crimes. Please report anything you see. Don't wait. Please do not wait, y'all. We need to recognize bias-motivated crimes and threats for what they are, abhorrent acts, and promote greater inclusion and equity across our communities together. So without further ado, I'd like to thank you. Now let me introduce Vice President of the Anti-Defamation League. I'm sorry, I have to sniffle. Northeast Division of the Anti-Defamation League, Evan Bernstein.
Thank you, and thank you to the MTA leadership, Chairman Foy. The ADL is very proud to be here to support this initiative from the MTA at a time where we're seeing a normalization of hate here in New York City, where we've seen the normalization of anti-Semitic graffiti, where we've seen normalization of anti-Semitic and other hateful assaults on other minority groups. It's a time where we need to see organizations as influential as the MTA stepping up and now taking the lead on pushing back against hate and bias. We feel at the ADL that this program, having no place for hate on the railroads at the MTA in the state of New York, should be the gold standard for what other organizations in this city, in this state, are looking at right now. Everyone should have a program like this. We cannot let the normalization continue. We cannot let young people think the climate that they're experiencing is the new norm. And the only way we can do that is by standing up time and time again and creating programs like this and thanking the MTA and their leadership for doing what they're doing, because more organizations need to do the same. And hopefully, again, this is just the beginning of a trend that we see in the state of New York and in the city of New York. As an organization at the ADL that's over 100 years old, is one of the oldest civil rights organizations in the United States, with a mission of stopping the defamation of the Jewish people and securing justice and fair treatment for all. We are so glad to be here standing with the MTA right now. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. Thank you.
Be happy to take questions on Andrew. Andrew, I think most New Yorkers act appropriately. Most New Yorkers are aware. The point of this campaign is to raise awareness first, perhaps in some cases to change behavior, but also to make clear, as each of the speakers said, that this is unacceptable on the MTA system, whether it's subways, buses, Long Island Railroad, or Metro North, and to give people the information to call the NYPD, to call the MTA police, or the New York State Hate Crimes Task Force. That's multi-purpose. Yeah.
Is the idea that you hear something offensive, hateful on the train, because of these, you're reminded to call right away, as opposed to thinking about it, maybe not doing anything about it later?
I think that's an important point. The police will tell you, the NYPD and the MTA police, that the sooner they get evidence of a crime, whether it's a hate crime or other, the quicker they can act and the more likely they are to apprehend somebody. I am happy to report that the NYPD has effected an arrest on the transphobic attack yesterday. That person is being brought back to New York. We hope that he is prosecuted to the full extent of the law by the Manhattan DA. Clayton.
Other cities have seen decreases in crime, not just hate crimes, but all kinds of crime when they've rolled out CCTV cameras across the system. I know that's a part of the capital plan. Can you provide any update or timeline as to when New Yorkers can expect cameras throughout the subway system and trains?
Well, there are cameras in place already in many places on the subway system. Same with respect to buses, Metro North and Long Island Railroad. We are engaged in the capital plan and a plan to make cameras universal. And there is a MTA security task force working exactly on that question. The new capital plan will fund cameras throughout the entire system, and that's an important part of the new 2020 to 24 capital plan.
Clayton, you good? Okay. Pat?
Please.
Oh.
Dan.
Pat?
Yeah.
Can you talk about what training MTA transit workers, New York City transit workers get when someone comes up to them to report such an incident? And does this campaign do anything new, whether it's reiterating policy or even updating protocols for them?
The participation, Dan, of the workforces at the subways, buses, Metro North and Long Island Railroad is a pivotal part of this. The unions are supportive of this program. I didn't mention it since the focus today is on hate crimes, but there's been an alarming increase in the attacks on transit workers. Hate crimes and crimes of all type are unacceptable in the subways, buses, Long Island Railroad, and Metro North, and our labor partners are going to be key players in this initiative.
So what do you tell them now then? Well, what do you tell them now then when such an attack or bias incident occurs?
Well, look, transit workers, Dan, are extensively trained in calling either their colleagues or the police and alerting the authorities, the police, in many cases, to the commission of a crime, whether it's a hate crime. That will continue. And obviously the fact that there's been this alarming increase in the number of attacks on transit workers has heightened sensitivity and action on the part of our union brothers and sisters. Please. Well, the victim in the case that I just mentioned self-reported. I'm not going to comment on the details of the investigation, but the fact that the victim self-reported on a more or less current basis, as I understand it, is quite important. Getting information to the NYPD or the MTA police as soon as possible is critical. David.
Yeah, what do you say to somebody who, ride the train every day? It's routine to see somebody just shouting slurs on your car. Maybe you opt to go to the next train because you think that reporting it is going to be too time-consuming and involve too much energy. What do you say to folks who think that reporting these types of events when they see them is just not worth the extra step or two?
Well, look, they're wrong, right? It's important to cut this behavior off, hate crime type behavior, even if it's just yelling slurs, which itself is offensive and constitutes a hate crime. You don't want that to escalate. And frankly, one of the lessons of the Holocaust is that it is important to take the early signs of hate into account, take them seriously, and that's what we're doing. We're raising consciousness by this. We're giving the public and transit workers the information as to how these hate crimes ought to be reported, and we want to drive the number of hate crime incidents throughout the entire system down. Anybody else? Andrew.
I just wondered if Sarah addressed what she talked about. You talked about as a Jewish woman, this is personal. I just wondered if you could elaborate on that and the spike in anti-Semitism in transit and across the city with that.
Sure. I think that, especially on this day, the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, reminding all of the customers that ride New York City Transit, that saying things lead to really saying things leads to more and more progression of issues. So really want to make sure that we raise awareness and do everything we can. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. All right, last question, Dan.
I was open for anyone at the MTA who, or any people here invited to speak, would like to address this. When I looked at the stats, the biggest incidents of hate crimes were anti-Semitic in nature, and also on the types of crimes were aggravated harassment 1, criminal mischief 4. They not only were the 2 biggest categories, but also saw the biggest increases. Can you just explain what the nature of these incidents are in terms of, what the criminal mischief is and what the aggravated harassment is?
Look, Dan, each of those crimes or alleged crimes is different. The facts are different in every case. The reality is that there have been too many. The 42% increase in hate crimes on New York City Transit is unacceptable. And whether the hate crime involves violence, a verbal slur, graffiti, it's unacceptable. And the point of the campaign today is to raise awareness and to drive the number of these incidents down, period, across the MTA system.
Evan, did you want to say something about the anti-Semitic nature of it?
Listen, I think it's the numbers that you're putting out are trends now that we've seen over the last 4.5, 5 years. The amount of anti-Semitic incidents that we're seeing, assaults, the type of assaults, also the amount of anti-Semitic graffiti. And again, I talked about the normalization. When there was anti-Semitic graffiti, 5 years ago, there'd be a press conference over it. Now it maybe goes into our audit and is something that is just on Twitter. The same thing is now starting to happen with assault. So I think what we're seeing now is that the idea of a pyramid of hate, and the top of that pyramid is genocide, and being it is the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, there's a baseline of that, and it starts with how people interact with one another, and it starts with how they interact with one another and the kind of language that they use, and the behavior that ends up, God forbid, leading to a genocide. And we need as a society to continue to what the MTA is doing by trying to prevent that and change civil society that we're seeing now rapidly changing in front of our eyes. And these are the kind of programs that hopefully will do that.
All right, thanks, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you.